A very good morning, students. I hope you people are good and safe. Today we are going to see about interest under distribution analysis. So before starting, just a recap what we saw in the last class. So in the last class we saw about meaning of distribution, that is what do you mean by an distribution. So distribution means it is an division of income among the four factor of production in term of rent. For the rent we are paying as an for the landlord who receives as an rent, and then labor who receives an wages, and capital which receives interest, and organization who receives as an profit. Then we saw about and two kinds of distribution. One is an personal distribution, another one is an functional distribution. Then we saw about an rent. So Ricardian theory of rent. So Ricardo explained about an rent concept. Then we saw about an wage theories. So theories of wages. So under theories of wages we saw about the meaning. So wages is the reward for the labor. Next we saw about the kinds of wages. So under kinds of wages we have four kinds of wages. One is a nominal wage, money wage or money wage, then real wage, piece wage, and then time wage. Next we saw about the theories of wages. One is an subsistence theory of wages. Under subsistence theory of wages, it explains about the supply of labor as well as with wage. Then we saw about the standard of living and wages. Here they have combined the standard of living with wage. Then we saw about the wage fund theory. That is, wage fund theory means every organization used to keep certain amount as an wage fund. So through that only the labor will be receiving a wages. If workers are more, the wages will be less. If workers are less, the wages will be more. Then we saw about the residual clement theory of wages. After the distributions of the three factors, land, then capital, then organization, the last one, the remaining amount which has been kept for the wages, that is the remuneration for the labor. Next we saw about the marginal productivity theory of wages, that is equal wages should be paid to the labor who has worked equally. Okay, that is called as a marginal productivity theory of wage. Now we are going to see about an interest. Okay, let us come to know about what do you mean by an interest. Interest is a payment made by the borrower to the lender for the money borrowed. Generally we all know about interest. Okay, so people used to get certain amount from their relatives or friends or through bank. So the capital which receives as a rent. So here they have explained the meaning of rent. So rent is the reward paid by the borrower to the lender for the use of capital. So under the factors, each factors which has been used and it has been received and reward. So labor which has been used and he receives as an reward, that is called as an wages. Land which has been used and it has been given as an reward as an rent. The same as it is capital also which has been used, for that capital it receives as an reward, it is called as an interest. Okay, so interest is the reward paid by the borrower to the lender for the use of capital. So this interest which has been defined by an Alfred Marshall. So interest is the price paid for the use of. Next one, we come to know about the kinds of interest. Under kinds of interest, we have two kinds of interest. One is an gross interest and another one is a net interest. Okay, now we will come to know what do you mean by a gross interest. Gross interest means that is the total amount of interest, that is entire amount of interest which has been received by the creditor from the debtor. Okay, so creditor who received a certain amount, not certain amount, that is the entire interest wherever he has lent a certain amount, through that how much amount totally he received, it is called as a gross interest. Net interest means it is a general one, the amount which has been lent to the debtor, he receives a certain amount as an payment, as an reward, it is called as a net interest. Okay, so here they have given an example. For the net interest is the interest payable for government securities. If you purchase in government securities, you will be getting an interest for every month. So this is called as a net interest. Okay, so I will repeat. So interest means what? So interest means it is an payment made by the borrower to the lender for the money borrowed. So if I have lent a certain amount of money to some person, means through that I receive certain amount as an interest. Okay, it is called as an interest. So interest means what? So interest means it is an reward paid by the borrower to the lender for the use of capital. So I am using an capital, so I have given reward, that is called as an interest. So this has been explained by an Alfred Marshall, that is an definition which has been given by an Alfred Marshall. Okay, next we come to know about theories of interest. Okay, so see here, this chart explains, that is this flow chart explains about and 4 theories. One is an absistent theory, Agu theory, loanable fund theory, and liquidity preference theories. Okay, so we have 4 theories of interest. So now let us see the first one. It is an absistent theory or waiting theory. Okay, so each theory which will be defined, which has been introduced or given by some economist. Okay, so see this, the first one, the theory which has been propounded by N.W. Senior. Okay, so absistent theory or waiting theory which has been propounded by N.W. Senior. So what he has explained, that is interest is the reward for abstaining from immediate consumption of wealth. That means what? See here, according to Senior, capital is the reward of savings. So see here, so how I got the capital? Through savings. Okay, but savings involves an abstinence or sacrifice. It is possible to save only if one abstain from the present consumption. So here this theory which has been explained, that see when savings will be done. Okay, that is when the present consumption has been done a sacrifice. If I done a sacrifice, that is if I don't want to spend certain, I don't want to purchase certain goods or service, so I'm just doing an sacrifice. So the amount which I have not spent, so that have been saved. Okay, so that is called as an absistence or sacrifice. That is, I am just sacrificing my present consumption. I am not consuming certain commodity. I am just postponing or just abstain. I am just doing an sacrifice. I feel that it is not necessary to spend. So that amount which has been saved and it has been lent in order to get an interest. This is called as an absistent theory or waiting theory. Okay, it is clear. I hope it will be very clear. So absistent theory means, that is I am just sacrificing my present consumption. Why I am sacrificing my present consumption? Because I will be saved that amount. So if I have saved that amount, that will be lent for interest. Okay. Next one, Marshall accepted the absistent theory. So he has also explained about the word waiting instant, that is instant of absistent, he has used the word waiting. Why he has used the word waiting? Because savings implies an waiting. That is savings implies an waiting. So you are not spending certain amount, you are just sacrificing. So you are sacrificing for certain period or certain days that amount which has been received a reward. Okay, according to him, interest is the reward for waiting. So according to him, interest is the reward for waiting. So savings involves waiting, but people do not like to wait. So in order to make them wait and in turn to save, we have to pay them some reward. Therefore, interest is the reward paid to the saver, capitalist, for his waiting. So see here, according to Alfred Marshall, so he has explained, that is, he has used the word instead of abstinence, he has used the word waiting. Why he has used the word waiting? Because savings implies waiting. Because if we doing savings means we will be waiting. Okay, so we will not prefer any consumption, so we will not spend on any consumption, so we are prefer for savings. So for that savings we are waited for a period, so we are waiting for certain period, that waiting times which receives a certain amount, that is called as a reward. Okay, so it is clear. So see here, abstinence theory or waiting theory, that is according to N.W. Senior, he has explained, that is he has used the word abstinence or sacrifice, that is people will postpone their present consumption, abstain from the present consumption. So present consumption means that they don't want to spend, so they want to save, so they are just doing an sacrifice in order to save. So it is based on N.W. Senior. According to Alfred Marshall, he has used the word waiting instead of abstinence. Why? Because savings implies and waiting. If you are doing an savings means you are waiting. Okay, so people don't like to wait, so for that waiting period they need certain amount, that is they need certain interest, so that the interest is the reward paid to the saver. Okay, next we come to know about an Agu theory of interest. Agu theory of interest, psychological theory of interest, time preference theory. Okay, so see here, the first one, the theory was propounded by John Ray in 1834, that is, but the credit goes to Bohm-Bawerk. So first, this Agu theory which has been introduced by John Ray in 1834, but this credit goes to Bohm-Bawerk. So this theory explains about, okay, so this theory explains about that people prefer the present goods rather than the future goods. Generally, a rational consumer, that is a people's mind, that they sacrifice their present goods. Okay, so they will not prefer for the present, always their mind and mentality will be focused on the future. So always people want to see their future, that is they want to purchase their goods on their future. Okay, because the present goods are more certain than the future goods, so they always think and worried about their future, and they will purchase at the future only. Okay, so here a quotations which has been given, as a bird in the hand is worth two in the brush. There are many countries where no one knows what will happen next day, but Asian crisis of 1996 and American crisis of 2007 to 8 were predicted even for economists, including Nobel laureate. So when people save, they have to postpone their present enjoyment or satisfaction. So see here, so every people's mentality that they want to sacrifice the present, and they want. Next we come to know about an liquidity preference theory of interest. Okay, so this theory which has been explained by a great economist, he is an new father of economics, J.M. Keynes. So he has propounded the liquidity preference theory of interest in his famous book, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, in 1936. So according to him, so he has explained that according to Keynes, interest is purely an monetary phenomena. So interest means it is based on the money. So rate of interest only which determine the demand for money and supply of money. So rate of interest. So if the rate of interest is high or if the rate of interest is low, we can able to determine the demand for money and supply of money. So see here, he has used the word, it is called as an liquidity preference. So liquidity preference means what? That is how people hold money. So in the form of what? So people hold money in the form of cash or in the form of non-liquid assets like bonds, securities, bills of exchange, then land, building, gold, etc. So people can use money that is in the form of liquid cash or in the form of non-liquid assets like bond, securities, bill of exchange, land, building, gold, etc. But see here, the liquidity has been, that is the motive of demand for money. People generally use money, people generally hold cash in the form of three motives. So according to him, so motives of demand for money. There are three motives that how people hold money. So how people hold money in the form of transaction motive, precautionary motive and speculative motive. What do you mean by a transaction motive? Transaction motive means that people hold cash for their day-to-day expenses. So every day they needs and money for some purpose. For not some purpose, most of the things we need money for their day-to-day needs. To fulfill our day-to-day needs, we need and money. Okay, so that is called as a transaction this is called as a transaction motive. So transaction motive means that people hold money for their day-to-day expenses. Next we come to know about an precautionary motive. So precautionary motive means that people hold cash for their emergency purpose. So it might be sickness or accident or any theft or fire or anything might happen. Okay, so if any uncertainty which happens, okay, for that people hold cash. So this is called as an precautionary motive. Next we come to know about an speculative motive. Speculative motive means this is based on their future savings. So people, they worried about their future. So for that people used to save. So people hold cash for to purchase bonds, securities. So why? Because this price, this is the main thing, that price, if the securities and bonds prices are increases means automatically they will receive certain amount of income as an interest. Okay, so speculative motive means that is people hold their cash for their future expenses, that is their future savings. So through bonds and securities they will purchase. So according to J.M. Keynes, he has explained that people hold cash for three purposes. So one is an transaction motive, precautionary motive and speculative motive. So transaction motive means that people hold cash for their day-to-day expenses. Precautionary motive means that people hold cash for their emergency or unforeseen anything happens. For that people hold cash. And third one, it is an speculative motive, that people hold cash for their future expenses, that is they will purchase bonds and securities. Okay, so up to this I will stop. Just a recap what we saw today. So today we saw about an interest. So what do you mean by an interest? So interest means what? So see here, interest is the payment made by the borrower to the lender for the money borrowed. So interest means it is an payment. It is an reward for the capital. So see here, so interest means it is an reward paid by the borrower to the lender for the use of capital. So those who are using an capital, they have to pay an reward. That reward is called as an interest. So then it has been defined by Alfred Marshall. So interest is the price paid for the use of capital in any market. Then we saw about the kinds of interest. One is a gross interest and another one is a net interest. So gross interest means that is total amount of interest received by the creditor from the debtor. So entirely, so how much he has lent and how much he has received, that is called as an gross interest. Net interest it is, and generally apart from the gross interest. Okay, so generally how much you have lent, the amount you have received, it is called as a gross interest. For example, through purchasing and government securities, you might be receiving certain amount of interest, that is called as a net interest. Then we saw about the theories of interest. So one is an absistence theory or weighting theory. So absistence theory, which has been explained by N.W. Senior, according to him, he has used the word absistence or sacrifice. Absistence or sacrifice means that people will abstain from the present consumption because people will think about the future. So if they are abstain from the present consumption and keep the money as in savings, so that saving time is called as in sacrificing. So they have done a sacrifice. For that sacrifice they receive a certain amount, it is called as an interest. Okay, next we comes to know about an Marshall, who has explained about the theory absistence theory of interest. He has used the word, instead of absistence he has used the word weighting. So weighting means that is people who sacrifice their present consumption, okay, in order to prefer for their savings. So while they wait, okay, people do not like to wait, but even though they have waited, because they need, there is, for that waiting they have got certain amount of payment or reward, that is called as an interest. Okay, for that waiting they receive certain amount is called as an interest. Next we come to know about an Agu theory of interest. Agu theory of interest, which has been propounded by John Ray in 1834, but the credit goes to Bomberg, an Austrian economist. Okay, he has explained that people all worried about their future consumption rather than the present. Always people mentality that they want to do their consumption, they want to do their future consumption rather than the present, because in future anything might happen, so they have worried about their future, so they will do their savings for their future. So at present the consumption will be sacrificed. But see here, as a bird in the hand in the worth, two in the bush. This means that we don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. Okay, the next day what is going to happen we don't know, but even though people are worried about their future, so they will do their sacrifice at the present, and they will and the future savings will be done. So when people save, have to postpone their present enjoyment or satisfaction. For sacrificing their present enjoyment, for that they receive an premium, it is called as an interest. Then next we come to know about an liquidity preference theory. So under liquidity preference theory, this liquidity preference theory, which has been propounded by J.M. Keynes, is a father of an new economics. Okay, so in his book The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money in 1936, he has explained about a word that is an liquidity. So people hold cash in the form of liquid cash, or rather than non-liquid assets. So people hold cash or rather than asset. So asset like bonds, security, bill of exchange, land, building, gold, etc. So then people hold cash in three motives. Why people hold cash? So for three motives they hold and cash. They demand for money for three motives. One is a transaction, precautionary and speculative. So transaction motive means that people hold cash for day-to-day expenses. Precautionary means people hold cash for their emergency, sickness, theft, accident or anything might happen. For that purpose people hold and cash. And third one is a speculative motive, that people hold cash for the future. So they will purchase and bonds and securities. So it gives an interest, that is, it gives certain premium for them. So this is the three motives that people hold cash. So up to this, interest is over. In the next class we will see about an profit. Okay, thank you students.